Good afternoon, everyone. I, Sneha, on behalf of NEN and Wadhwani, would like to invite you all for this webinar and also introduce our expert. Dorai is based in California, USA, and hails from Chennai. He is a technopreneur, built 2 companies in India and 2 in US, a mentor and a coach on innovation. He wears several hats as CEO of iMorph Incorporation, a company he co-founded, and Innovation Catalyst. In addition to iMorph, he started the Startup Special Interest Group at TAI Chennai and has also participated in the advisory board at Chennai K Community. Dorai is one of the mentors at NASSCOM Emerge at Chennai. He started and is the chief mentor of Innovation Cell at KCG College. Before I hand over the floor to Dorai, a quick note to all our attendees. You will all be on mute. You may ask questions by typing in the panel provided. Our expert will answer the questions after his presentation. Over to you, Dorai.
So doing a startup is pretty hard, and you're going to know why as we go through and step by step talking about various aspects of startup. The biggest problem is that if you're starting for the first time, you don't know what you don't know. You know certain things. You know that you need to build something innovative. You need to differentiate yourself. You need to get a very critical set of customers right up front. You need to figure out how to make money very quickly and manage cash flows. So there is a whole bunch of things we know. But what we don't know is that how successful we are going to be and how soon we are going to even break even and take off. And there are a whole list of things we don't know that we need to figure out as we start the company and start running it. Mentors and coaches can help, and they can help for several reasons. One reason is that most of these mentors have done it before. Because they have done it before, they made certain mistakes that most of us make. And for example, a lot of people worry about whether we'll be profitable in some X number of months and how to manage cash flows, those kinds of things. But any successful entrepreneur will tell you that you really need to watch the cash. Cash flow is the king, and it's very, very important for you to do it. And you, depending on your sector or your industry, they will ask you questions that will make you think. Mentors don't really give you advice most of the time. They try to get the best out of you by asking you lots of questions. But they'll tell you about the mistakes they've made before, so they can learn from there. Almost all mentors who have been entrepreneurs before, they made mistakes, and they made different types of mistakes. Unfortunately, we can't really easily learn from others' mistakes, but listening to the kind of mistakes that can happen will give us a lot of knowledge about how to go about doing it slightly better. Not all entrepreneurs, even successful ones, have been always successful. They fail several times before they become successful. They find their way through. Some of them, have several companies which have failed, and then they hit on one company that is successful. These are called serial entrepreneurs who do one company after the other. And because they've failed and succeeded, they not only know what are the reasons for failure, but they also know what are the reasons for success. And when you go back and look at, if I, in my one of my previous startups, we built over 20 products, and about 15 of them were failures. But 5 of them were, success at different rate, but one product was extremely successful. And when we go back and analyze each one of these failures and successes, we know what caused them, and we can share some of those ideas with you. When you're doing a startup, you need to make lots of decisions. In fact, I had a big list of about 100 decisions a startup needs to make, but we don't have time for that. So I'll share a few with you. You need to figure out whether you're going to have a company that is funded or a company that is bootstrapped. A bootstrap company is one which is self-funded, and typically in India, many of the companies, also in the world, the largest number of companies are actually bootstrapped. That means they started with nothing. They earned some small amount of money for the founder to somehow survive, and then keeping that money, then they slowly start building up the business enough to hire another person, and then they go on building like that. It's a slightly slower process compared to getting funded, but you can start with no dependencies at all. And bootstrapping has lots of advantages. And in fact, there is a book on how to bootstrap your company. Pretty much all my startups have been bootstrapped, in the sense that we started with no money, and then we earned some money and started building products. A typical pattern of a bootstrap, if you are a product company, you'll start with some service. From the service you'll earn revenues, and then you'll take some of those revenues and spend it on products. Or, which is something else that is happening nowadays, is that you will build a small minimal product. It's called a minimum viable product, to go and test out your concept in the marketplace, find some early customers who will pay you money, and then slowly grow from there. So funding companies, this is not an either-or question, even though I mention it as an either-or question. Sometimes the companies are bootstrapped in the initial stages till they get to some level, then they go and get funding to actually grow. And those are actually good companies, because you've proven that your product is needed by the marketplace, because you got a bunch of early customers, not free customers, but paying customers. And once you get a bunch of paying customers, now the next challenge is to go and find, are there enough of these with which you can build a business. The next question that comes to people's mind is, should I start a local business? Like if you are in India, is it an Indian business? Should I start a global business, or should I be targeting to sell to America? A lot of outsourced companies are all a mix of both. There are advantages and disadvantages in both, depending on your local market. There may not be a great product opportunity in India. Selling products in India may be a little more difficult than selling products in other countries. But if you are based in India, you know the Indian customers better than the customers abroad. So, but there are some groups where these differences do not make that significant impact. The reason is that if you are a technology person, and if you are building a tool for a technology person, technology people are very similar all across the world. So there are common communities. So this is another decision you have to make. Should I build a local market, or should I build a global market? And this decision becomes easier once you try to figure out who is your customer, how am I going to reach that customer, how am I going to reach a large number of those customers for me to make enough money. And that is what is going to make a difference. And whether if you are doing it as a global business, you want to figure out the same things, except that you probably have to figure out how to do it through the internet, through the web, for example. Mostly I'll be talking about product business. There's an implicit assumption I'm making that you want to build products, but services, the techniques are slightly different, but some of these decisions are still very, very similar. Do you want to build products, or do you want to build services? The nice thing about services is that normally most of the entrepreneurs work in some companies, and I'll talk about student startups in a couple of minutes. Most of you can just start with some company, gain some experience, have some interaction with customers, so you know how to deal with customers. Then you go out and start your company. So you already have a few customers that you have dealt with before who are willing to give you some work, and that is how most of the companies in India are. They all are small service companies that have either worked before and got the same companies that they work for as customers, or they have come up with some ideas and then built the companies. The product companies are starting up only now. The ecosystem is slowly building up, and products are slightly more difficult because you need to validate the product. We may get a dozen ideas. You need to pick, like if you have hundreds of ideas, you're going to pick a few ideas from there and build a prototype, go to the actual customer who is supposed to use your product and find out whether it is useful enough for them. And that process, initially you won't be getting any money during that process. And if you are very smart, that process may be just 3-4 months. If you put in a lot of effort and you need to depend on a lot of groups and it's a more complex product, it may take 6 months to a year. And that is kind of dangerous. There is a risk because during that period you're not earning money. But the advantage of products is that once you start earning money, scaling up is much faster, and you get a lot of customers, and you don't have to spend additional effort. In the case of service business, when you get more customers, you need to hire more people, so you have a different set of problems, right? Even in the products, you have to hire more people, but it will not be the same level of growth as in the service business. So which one do you start with? That is one of those questions. If you are building a product business, are you going to give it away so that you can get an initial set of customers and and prove, or are you going to charge for it, even if you're going to charge a small amount? Again, the first one is called the freemium model, F-R-E-E, freemium, like premium portion. So you start with free and then convert them into paid customers. And that is a science of its own, and there are a lot of interesting techniques on how to make it do it successfully. But at least it validates the product to some extent, in the sense that if somebody gave you a product and it's not useful to you, you're not likely to use it. But if somebody gave you a product and it's kind of mildly useful, you're going to use it. But just because people use the product doesn't mean it has a value that you need to, they'll pay for it. But at least it shows that the product is useful. Then you need to figure out how to make it useful enough for people to pay for it. The other decision you need to make is, are you going to go after businesses or are you going to go after consumers? The reason why you need to decide this is the way you market your products is very different. If you're going after B2B or businesses, it is a very different style marketing. Just because I'm saying business, it doesn't mean enterprises. It could be even small businesses, but you're not selling to consumers. An example is an iPad is a consumer device and also a business-to-business device, but it started as a selling to individuals. So anything that you sell to individuals, all our products we consume at home today, like the fruit juices and beverages and all those things are typical consumer products. So you want to decide whether you want to go after consumers. Consumers, there's a whole class of problems, a whole different style of marketing. Business is a very different set of problems and very different style of marketing. So this, do you want to go horizontal or vertical? And let me explain a little bit of what I mean. Vertical is that you take a certain industry and then you serve a small segment of the industry, or what is called a niche market. So for example, you may build a, let's say, a tool for Android developers or iPhone developers, and that is a very kind of, it's kind of between horizontal and vertical, but it's built on top of a platform. So if you build a tool for building applications, that is typically a horizontal market because anybody from any industry can use that tool. But if you simply say, I'm going to do a CRM system for, let's say, small businesses or small manufacturing businesses, then you are going in a very vertical market. Or you can even say, I'm going to serve the financial markets with this particular product. That is, vertical. The reason for choosing one or the other is, in the case of vertical market, you have very concrete, clear messages, and you go and publicize them, or you places where you go to market them are very clear. Each vertical has a magazine. The way you pick a vertical is, let us say that I sell, cosmetic products for women the age of 15 to 50, let's say. You know exactly which magazines to go and advertise in, which portals to go to, kind of stuff, and so that is one of those kind of things. So if you sell across broad ranges of people, then it is a very marketing becomes a little bit more challenge, but the market is also slightly bigger. And it's always better to start in a small niche, establish yourself, and then start building something. Even if you have a horizontal product, go try it out in a small market first. Build tools or applications. And that's because I come from a software background, and software people always think of tools because they look for a tool, they don't find it, they say, okay, I'm going to build this tool because it's useful to me, and then you find a bunch of people who are like you, and then you can go and sell it to others. Do you improve an existing product, or do you build new products? And again, there are advantages, and somehow people think that all entrepreneurship is innovation. You have to come up with something brand new. That's not true. So there used to be, about 20, 30 years ago, there used to be this database called DBase, which was an interpreter and which was very slow. Then there is a product that came out called Fox Pro, which was like 10, 20 times faster than DBase. So as long as when you make the improvements, there is a substantial, if you make like 10%, 20% improvement, nobody is going to really care about it. But if you make significant improvement, like 5 times increment, or it is 5 times cheaper, then there is a chance that you can break into the marketplace. So improvements can be done in several ways, and you can improve the features, you can improve the price, you can improve the ease of use of the product, and there are several what are called the vectors of improvement. And that is a safer, slightly safer way to start, because market is already established. When you come up with a new product, you need to go and establish the marketplace for it. So there is a lot of user education involved, which I think is order of magnitude more expensive. But either of these things work. The examples of both successful new products as well as successful products that have improved others. This is again one of those things that, do you scratch your own itch or do you look for problems in the industry? Scratching your own itch means you have a need, and I think I mentioned it slightly earlier. You have a need and you look around and you don't find anything fulfilling that need. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are a techie and you are a mother and you just had, like a 1-year-old child, and you want to use tools like, iPad or mobile devices to teach them instead of going and, buying books and all that, because these devices have multimedia. And you look around for nice lessons to teach them in, let's say, Tamil or Telugu or one of the Indian languages, and you don't find any of these things. I said, okay, I'm going to go build this. And then you say, you have an idea, you may not even know how to build it, but you have an idea that if you do it, you also know 50 other mothers in similar, like between 1 to 3-year-old kids, and you know that they can be your initial market to try out, and then you'll go on. This is basically you're scratching your own itch. And then you find enough people with a similar problem, and you create a marketplace and you look for that. The other way to do is to find out problems, and let us say you are in a certain industry, and a lot of people are complaining about this doesn't work properly, this is this problem, and then you go and try to find out. And it could be a carpooling service that somebody recently came up with. It could be anything where people are complaining a lot about, I have to wait in the bus stop for a long time, taxis are not reliable during peak times. It'll be really nice if if there is a service like. That's how all the shuttles were born, right? They looked at these problems, and there are all these point-to-point shuttle which are just taking off because there is a big problem in the existing infrastructure. So how do you validate an idea? These are what the kind of questions I had given you earlier were questions essentially that says, what are all the what are the different kinds of things that you can do, and how the most important thing is you have an idea and you get very excited by it, and people tell you, no, it may not work, and sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't listen, but because you have a strong conviction, and then you just go back and you want to validate this idea. The best thing to do is to first think of a customer who will use your product. Find at least 4 to 5 of those customers. Create either a small prototype or a small PowerPoint as if the product is already done, as if you're doing the product to them. Tell them that you're concept testing this. Then just walk them through the product and say, hey, is this useful? And when you show something concrete, people are more likely to give you very good feedback than if you just go with an idea and say, I have this idea to improve transportation, what do you think? And you will not get any useful feedback. So you take an idea, you want to validate an idea, and with a small group of people, then based on the suggestions you can go, and there's this guy who wrote this book on bootstrapping. He did this company called Right Now Technologies, and he said that he did this experiment. He took a piece of paper, wrote down 10 features of the product that he was thinking of making, and then called 100 potential customers. That's all he did. 1 month he locked himself in a room. He said it was the most difficult part of his life, and he started, and then just asking each one those questions, saying, hey, what's going on? Can this work for you? Will this feature be useful? And then first ask customers, hey, will you buy this? And these are the features, and the customer will say yes or no. Then if he says yes, he said, why would you buy it? Which features are important? Customer says no, said, why won't you buy it? What else would it, what else can I make that will be interesting to you? And so gathered all this information, then made changes to his presentation, went back to another batch of customers to talk to them. So I think a lot of us go and build something without validating the idea, and then we start finding out, there's a problem because what we thought people need is not exactly what people need. Okay. What is the business model? I think even whether you start out by giving a product free or whether you start out by charging customers, in the case of product business, you need to know how are you going to make money ultimately. So business model is nothing but, hey, this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get X number of customers by giving it away free. Then I'm going to release a new version of the product for which I'm going to charge, and based on all the knowledge I gained from this usage of these 100 customers, and I'm going to charge them. So I'm going to do this first free product in 3 months, the paid product in 3 months. It will be 6 months before I start receiving revenues, but my estimates are that I'll get this much of money, and that will be required for my business to grow. So you need to do these kinds of calculations, write down your assumptions, because you can verify them. A full-fledged business model is normally done with a business plan, which is much more detailed. But I've not seen any business plan that was executed the way it was written. But it's a great thinking tool. You have to sit down and make all the assumptions. What will it cost me to build this product? How many people do I need? How much money do I have? It'll prove whether you can actually have this business getting started. Okay, how do you get early customers? And that is another very interesting thing, is that how do you get your first customer? Because every customer whom you approach will say, hey, can you tell me who else is using this product? And that's a big problem. So how can you get the first guy using the product if you don't have the first customer? So that is one of those things that you need to find out. And once you get the first customer, how do you get the next few customers? And then how you get a larger number of customers. And a lot of people spend a lot of time, effort doing it. And there are many techniques, and I can take some questions about this and give you very specific answers later to this. But this is like one of the hardest problems. And the next hardest problem is to scale the customers to a level where you have a profitable business. If you take a product and improve it, or while you are building, somebody else has a similar idea and they also build a similar product, how do you differentiate your product from others? What way do you differentiate it? They'll say, oh, sometimes the differentiation is not exactly a product that does exactly what you do. Sometimes the differentiation is that, oh, I do it this way, and now this product lets me do an entirely different way, and why should I switch? So you have to have a compelling reason, and you have to have a very great differentiator. And we'll talk more about it during questions. So I'm going to quickly run through the rest of the slides. These are a couple of common questions that people ask me. Somebody comes and says, hey, I've been doing marketing and sales. I can sell anything, but I don't have a technology background. Can I start a business? How can I be successful? How can I find a technology partner? Can I just hire a programmer and give him all the work and, can I get things done? That's a common question. The other common question is exactly the reverse of it. Hey, I know technology. I've been working as, a lot in this particular industry or this particular field. I understand, how to build products or how to provide services, but I don't know anything about marketing. What do I do? How do I go to, how can I go and attract marketing people to come and work with me? Because I don't have money to pay them. I can't hire a VP of marketing or sales kind of stuff. Okay, so there are hundreds of questions. The questions before you start up, the questions while you are starting up and during the process, the questions immediately after you start up, because you will make some assumptions, you'll make some hypotheses, and some of these hypotheses will be valid and some of them will not be. So you have to figure out, hey, how do I go get this information? And then based on what feedback I receive, how am I going to fine-tune my business? How am I going to change the product, change my method of selling, or change the message, or change the type of customers? Or what the worst thing that that happens is what is called pivoting, where you move entirely from one to a different kind of market. There are no right answers. The reason why I say there are no right answers is that I can sit and pontificate on what is the best way to market using social media and all that sort of stuff. But unless you go and try it in your industry for your specific product, for your specific set of customers in a very specific market segment, you're not going to prove, you're not going to get any validation. So many of these don't have right answers, and that is one of the reasons why mentors normally don't give you suggestions. They'll ask you a ton of questions. What have you tried? Why do you think it is not working? Because lots of times we keep we don't try something long enough and we move away from it and only to find out that, hey, that method would have worked because we were slightly ahead of the time, or we didn't put this message. People didn't really understand what I was saying clearly. So maybe you need to change the message, or you need to change the pricing, tweak the pricing a little bit, and those kinds of things. So towards the end of this presentation, I'm just saying that you get community, coaches, and mentors. These are your resources. What are communities? NEN is a community. NEN is trying to organize a series of these seminars and webcasts to help you get educated. We have other communities. There is I spend my time between Chennai and California. In Chennai, we have Chennai Open Coffee Club. For technology people, we have Chennai Geeks. Similar ones exist in Ahmedabad, in Pune, and Bombay, and Bangalore. There is TIE, which is for a slightly more mature business. There is NASCOM for large businesses as well as emerging companies. So these are all communities. When you walk into these communities, you don't go listen to somebody's talk and come back. The reason to attend all these things is to just go mix with people, ask them tons of questions. If I have done a startup, and if somebody who's going to do a startup comes and asks me questions at any point in time, anytime, on the web or in person or, through email, I will always happily answer it. So the simple reason that, I really wish I had such community when I started. My first, startup was end of November, when the word startup itself was not popular, and it was a technology startup. So what do mentors and coaches do? And they do a bunch of things. And we'll go back to these problems a little bit. What coaches and mentors are slightly different, but they're very similar. Coaches are people who will coach you in one particular space very well. Like there is what is called a CEO coach. You can think about cricket coaches and football coaches, right? They'll watch your play, they'll watch your competitions play, and then they'll tell you these are the mistakes that you're making, which you are not aware of. Even for Olympics and all, for sprinters and all that, you have coaches. So they'll come and make you do work, and they take your weak points and try to improve it. Mentors are slightly above that. What they do is, mentors need not necessarily be business mentors. Even students can have mentors, even though no students really know that they can go and have mentors. But when you're a business, what the mentor does is, mentor says, okay, go meet these 3 people. Talk to them about this. Okay, here are 5 customers who are potentially may be able to use your product. Go talk to them and see what they say. Come back and let us discuss. So they kind of guide you at a very broad level, but they will not give you specific things to do. They will not come and say, okay, this is how you fix this problem, kind of thing. They're not at that level. They're at a broader level. I said, when we were doing mentoring through NASCOM, there are people who came in and reasonably successful businesses, reasonably profitable. They want to grow 10 times. And so one group wanted to come and grow like 3 to 4 times. And one mentor said, why can't you think about growing 10 times? And what is preventing you? So they lift some, clouds in front of your eyes, and by asking you kind of questions. And that's basically what they do. How do you find mentors? I'm assuming that NEN is going to help you, but even otherwise, there are lots of mentoring groups. In fact, in Chennai, the mentoring groups are waiting for mentees. Not many people know that they can, take a lot of help from mentors. NASCOM has one. There are about 7 or 8 of us. We may, at any point in time, 3 of us attend a Saturday meeting. I think it's the second Saturday of every month. We talk to 3 different companies, and the companies can come back again and again multiple times. And then, it's just a place where you can go and talk about your problems. Because when you're running a company, you're kind of lonely. There is nobody else like you in your space, in your product, and you can't really go and talk to all kinds of people. You need to talk to someone who can, take you to the next level. And finding mentors, is a tough problem, because I think there are a lot of startups. But going to all these networking events is a good one. Finding somebody who has done it multiple times and just going and talking to them is another one. Even if they can't be your mentor, they'll point you to somebody who can be potentially your mentor. Okay, so I'm now ready for questions.
So thank you very much for that interesting session, and thank you all to our attendees for participating in the webinar. We are glad that the questions did keep coming, but due to lack of time, we are unable to answer all. Please do send in your feedback and suggestions to us at eclub@nenglobal.org. Also, if you found the session interesting, feel free to blog or post about it. The recorded version of the webinar will be available on our website eclub.nenonline.org by this week. Our next webinar will be held on June 27th from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. by Manoj Shah of Plug HR on Is Hiring and Retaining an Issue? A webinar on HR for startups. We look forward to your participation. Thank you once again and have a nice evening.